going again.
This meeting is being recorded.
Right, I think everybody now knows that this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to Clint's launch for Quiet Flows the Hull. My name is Alan Gillett and I'm one of the publishers, and also here quietly, silently, is Rose Drew, who is the other publisher. Rose will be, Rose has a slight throat impediment tonight, so she's promising not to say too much. But we are looking forward to hearing from Oz Hardwick, Amina Alyal, and Susie Williamson during the course of the evening. And of course, the star of the show is Clint. I see Oz has appeared. So you might actually win the conch to go first, Oz, because oh look, I spy Amina too, but she's further down the list.
Hi.
So if you'd like to fight amongst yourselves as to who goes first, then we will proceed. Just give it a couple of more moments to allow a few more people to join in, and for Amina to get warm. And we look forward to hearing. We just mentioned to everybody who has come in that we have created a code for our website that allows you to buy the book for £1 off the sticker price and free shipping. So if you yes, you have to close the other door. Yeah, we have this problem that because we're next to one another, we sometimes our sound interferes with one another. So, Oz, okay, the wonderful Oz Hardwick, who has, I know, known Clint for many years, and we've known Oz for many years. Would you like to open up the bidding?
Happy to do that. If can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent, good. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me. And I've had a sneak preview, of course, of Clint's book. So I'm really looking forward to the readings shortly from that. I'm going to read for about 5 minutes, I think. So it looks it's 3 minutes past. Oh, tunes. Brilliant, good. I didn't realise there's a musical act as well on, so that was very nice. I suppose I ought to sort of mention, as no one else has yet, it's kind of useful if people don't have microphones on when they're not speaking. So I'm just going to read for 5 or 6 minutes from my latest collection, which is a census of preconceptions from Vision Books, which came out in December. I'm going to begin with a poem called After Class. Magpies carry their own expectations, their privileged numerology and opportunistic grabs for all that glisters. So when I meet one in that narrow alley between the school and the plastic works, I greet him with the respect he demands, doffing my flat cap as I slipped my ring fingers out of sight and into my threadbare pockets. Up close, his black wings are a shimmering slick of spilt oil with all the colours of a bruised eye. His white is a flashbulb in a police station, framing the blame on a hapless stooge. He cocks his head, commands my sorrow and cackles at my accent when I claim I've done no wrong, all the time tapping his talons on the glass rim of this chance encounter. Something glitters that may once have been mine. The school bell rings, the factory siren hoots its changing shift, and the magpie puffs up his breast, speaking with the stink of brandy and expensive cigars. He tells me he'll remember me, but he doesn't tell me why. Second one I'm going to read is called The Promise, and Normally, of late, I've just started reading from this book recently, and I sort of, as I sort of go along, I say things about the sequence of the collection and the general themes. But I think I'll just, given the time constraints, I'll just leave you hanging, and if you find them interesting, you find them interesting, and if not, you don't. This is called Promise. Returning home, the lights are dim, as if someone has slackened the spectrum while we were away. Rooms are less tangible, redder and deader, and walls hint at a dull pulse. This, we decide, is what recovery looks like. Not a blue dress buttoned on the first day of school, not a posy of violets in a jar by the window, not inked initials in the collar of a stiff white gown, and nothing at all, like the blue blot tarn cupped in the palm of a newborn mountain. From room to room, each lamp we light has a lower wattage than the last, so that by the time we reach the bedroom, the click of the switch plunges us into the infrared. While you fall asleep as soon as you trip, still in your outdoor clothes, onto your side of the bed, I make virtue of necessity and develop all the films that have been half wound in cameras since the millennium, filling my lungs with vinegar as I feel lost friends and family tingle at my fingertips in gelatin and silver, with their new clothes and their eyes full of school holidays. When the day eventually dawns, I'll frame them like a medieval allegory and tell you of all their love and in what circumstances they died. But now I'll drape you in a subtle cloth, listen to the light waves murmuring at the foot of the stairs, and wait for the robin, the thrush, the blackbird, the wren, and their whole chaotic chorus to welcome in the day. That's I read two. I'm going to read two more, and then I'll let things be done. This is Rainfuge. While others heard music in the rain, I always heard animal voices, urgent and arrhythmic. In the house my friend's grandfather had built on a blunt promontory, the night was kept awake by the light from distant factories, the urgent business of insects deep in mattresses. Paperbacks with lurid covers lined the walls, cheap pan thrillers from the 70s, chaste romances, and memoirs by astronomers and archaeologists. Incomplete packs of cards offered a tarot of sorts, though we ignored their predictions as the storm bundled like bears across the roof, grunting and spitting, murmuring its hunger. In the bright morning, a stranger stood on the lawn, naked but for the dead bear, huge upon her shoulders. When she spoke, we didn't understand a word, but the clouds in her eyes cried in the language of our aching loins. And finally, Not Fade Away. Imagine the tune in the back of your head. Skeleton sits, drumming his knuckles on a closed book, that bow diddly beat of blunt bones. It's a Bible night, a tribal night, a night when the dead come back to rap on the shutters and shake the shingles, raise the roof and lower the temperature to cool, cool, cool. It's a piano night, with keys clacking like loose wooden tongues that gossip and kiss by the light of a black moon that perches like an owl on a lightning-blasted tree. And Skeleton sits, humming beehive vamps to the snare drum scratch of beetles in the boardwalks and bedposts, riffing honey into all those sticky places we've been told not to touch. It's a feast night, a beast night, a so good to meet you, so good to eat you, little piggy night, with thick poppy breath and white teeth teasing hot, soft skin. And Skeleton sits, rattling those rhythms like rolling dice with snake eyes hooded and impossible to resist. And it's a tasty night, a wasted night, a night to shimmy and shudder to the stuttering flutter of bone on slack catgut, and bare feet shuffle on bare boards. Come a little closer, come a little closer. And skeleton winks, and the teeth in an old skull sweat. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Oz. I thoroughly enjoyed all of those, especially the last one. I think they do all bear reading, because I could almost ask you to read them all over again. But I think we'll pass on that. Amina, are you?
Yes, I'm
ready
here.
to go?
Yeah. I'm ready to go. So what have I got here? Let me just see. Here we are. Right. So very nice to be reading today with Clint's new book. And because it's about the hull, I thought I would read my one poem that has hull in it. And this is called a sonoric, which is a mixture of a sonnet and a limerick. There was an old lady of Hull with a sonnet. She wrote to enliven her dull life in Hull. I know the concept's concise, she said, but I shall draw it right out by enlarging upon it. Before writing poems, I never had fun. It emerged like a kraken from the waves of the Humber, waking me out of a long-lasting slumber, bulging with tentacles just as I spun it. She exclaimed as she sought a form that was shorter, "It's done, but I've still got a quatrain to fill and more." She would wail and deplore the mysterious law, but it continued to govern and thwart her. She said, "I've a task to complete, I won't shun it. Don't prevent me or stop me or halt me, I'm on it." And the next one is about Galileo. Okay, and it's just quoting from Galileo to begin with. "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the sky?" From Acts 1:11. "Quarrelsome yourself, you were perpetually moving in circles courtly and papal, in time marked out by the sun's moving shade, never quite inventing clocks, while in grave corridors and rich halls, beyond your calculations, dim stars and gravitating satellites aligned, tides tipped, suns spotted by fear and pride, but achieving nonetheless a conjunction catastrophic to your liberty, demanding recantation, yielding a quip, uomini Galilei, perché state a guardare verso il cielo, insisting on the rock-still earth. It made no difference in the end. House arrest was merely time for study, so long as the daughter took penitential rituals on herself. Eppur si muove parenthetical mutter, while you documented pendulum swings, weighed up systems, Ptolemaic and Copernican, Tychonic compromise, the shifting moons round Jupiter, sifted through tides, comets, and the size of stars, the changing shadows on the moon. One that's set a very long time ago, 30,000 years ago, if I'm remembering rightly, the Chauvet Cave in France, Chauvet. Space heavy as a snowdrift, cancelling sound. Close to, a screaming wind charges the earth like a big-shouldered bison, hunting its creatures, giving and taking away, fathoming disorderly trunks and leaves, splashed with pure dew, vivid with animal. Animal ordure erupts with the odor of flowers. Inside the cave, fire lights up naked human feet, where bare feet go by in parallel times. On scratches and bulges of rock, torchlight motion pictures flex. The artist shows how busy as yeast the pictures grow. Ox and ass, mammoth, megaceros, hermaphrodite rune. Then, heavy as a snowdrift, the ages pile up silently. People sift, and the shoe of a Roman child seems stiff with the stuff of ancient times. And now, quite a while ago, but perhaps a little bit nearer in time than the last one, in Cornwall, Sancreed Well, Sans Creed. Down lip and fold of rock, deep among fern and moss, in amniotic darkness, through water clear under butterflies and blackberries, meteors blaze, brief tales of tales, trail tadpole wills, stardust, streaks of bright fading. Hands weave voluptuously, slow, a Celtic knot of corded silk, thinking of an embryo remote in a dark sack, silkworm, microscopic coelacanth spark. The threads reach centuries of feet, ambling along quiet fields. Remember hands from the bothy in the manor house, from Viking and pirate ship, each a new wave paving, an old well sinking, each with its thread of silk. And Brimham Rocks in Yorkshire. You probably all know and love. These big rocks, top heavy, once seemed sculpted by druids, and even now the devices of numinous floods. Deep lands sweep down like an intake of breath, and the sun licks round rock edges, striking life from the ragwort nectar trove. Trees always stood here, birch and alder and oak, as they did over all of the hills. And here one day a lynx chased a sunbeam, shaken around by the wind over last night's flint-struck ashes, and a buck-skinned hunter paused on a rock and watched. And just for the final one, a poem about books, about reading, rereading a book from childhood, reading spectres. Shelves of books are home. Open one, and like a spring-loaded flower, a scene comes out, a drenched woodland, a cave, a lantern filled with fireflies, an old man, face carved like a staff. Along the cold dust of a highway, horrors prance like flames, snatching at souls, reeking limbs disappearing, reaching to suck at eyeballs too starkly naked, lit by the shades of the early hour. But between those phantoms, another emerges. Embers, hot and grey, scattered twigs and old newspaper. The bats beginning to circle, the clatter of crockery in another room, a bark, a shout, a spurt of clucks, and new smells of bread and soap. The morning suddenly vanished, and the evening come. Thank you.
It's lovely.
Thank you, Amina. It's very much a York night tonight so far. So now it's the man of the hour, Clint. Tell us about the book and read a little.
Right, thank you very much. I'd like to start, obviously, by thanking Rose and Alan at Stairwell for taking on Quiet Flows the Hull. And I'd obviously particularly like to thank Oz and his first lovely review of the collection, and Amina for reading. And I know you're going to enjoy Susie's poetry later on as well. So, Quiet Flows the Hull. The idea for the title came from the fact that we walk the River Hull, around the River Hull. It seems to be part of our life. We get stuck at various bridges when they're open, and we could get stuck at various bridges when they're closed as well. You know, so it's got a place where, and there are some fantastic walks, some of which I'm going to acquaint you with during the course of the next set. However, it's incomplete because I always had the plan of going right the way to the source of the River Hull. I then found out there are two sources, and then found out that both those sources are owned by very large conglomerates with men who like to tout shotguns, if not use them. And they certainly wouldn't spend or waste any time in taking you to court for the new act of trespass, which apparently you couldn't be taken to court for until last year, but now you can. I'm not certain which government would allow such a decay of our public rights, but there we go. Less of that, and on to the first poem. And the first poem I dedicate to my English teacher, a chap called Ted Harben, who was without a doubt someone who followed the creed of the 1970s, that creativity, and forget everything about grammar. If you were enjoying yourself and if you were somehow engaging with the work of poetry or plays, then it was doing you some good. And this particular poem really sort of celebrates the time and effort he put into some of my early poetry, most of which I have to say has been locked in a safe and deposited in the Marianas Trench. Right, anyway, so Ted Harben. Sometimes I turn up unannounced with my latest poem, which Ted would read. He'd take off his glasses, suck the temple tip, reflect. Erudition, a favourite word. Accessibility, no place for the absurd. Each week in the Scarborough Evening News carried his verse of germane muse. He gave me an abiding love of Eliot, Spender, Auden, Graves, the greats of his pre-war youth, before military service changed all. Never without a knitted tank top and green cord jacket, his tie was a Windsor knot, but asserted by a simple pin, of course. He never made a scene or allowed a racket, but bore the creed of 70s creativity, took school trips to Stratford to watch the greats. I remember he once said, I'd make a poet. He loved and signed the edition I sent, although it didn't quite match his aspirations. Too much free verse. I last met him cycling through town. He stopped, saw my daughter, exclaimed, "My God, you bred," smiled at his acerbic joke, shook my hand warmly. "Never give up on dreams," he said. Sorry, I'm an emotional old git.
Shall I?
No, it's
Okay.
all right. So, as I was saying earlier, we take our grand dog for a walk along the banks of the River Hull at Kingswood. And if you do that, you will get this fantastic view across the wetlands, or ings as they're called around the area. Quiet flows the Hull. I can see Beverley Minster across the ings, towers of magnesian limestone glimpsed between trees across flat lands ancestors tilled. Magnified through Ayer's prison, Great John chimes the hour, as it has since 1901, heard by 4 generations, now gone. No place a shadow can hide under the sun, where the Hull flows silver, sometimes sapphire, often grey under a sodden sky. Old willows feel the tug of tides, roots securing the banks, holding fast. Our roots secure, becoming entwined with each ebb and flow of the river. The carolans peal carried east across the ings, a song ancestors heard as they tilled these fields, toiled, aware of their here, their now. So yeah, And there are obviously two directions to go from that point. You go northwards out towards Warm and various other villages, and then into the great unknown that's at the back of Hutton Cranswick and all those sorts of places, Skern. Or you go down into the city of Hull itself. And if you do that, you'll come to a place called Wincombe Lee. Wincombe Lee is married to the river, matching meander to embankment, pretending not to notice its muddy effluent marking the limit. When we walked along Wincombe Lee, the whalebone, with smoke cascading from its fire, from cigarettes, from pipes, I'd sit in the corner drinking shandy. Grandpa leaned against the bar, talking business. Later, cameras poised, I saw only the sink and swell of the river, the decaying fabric of this once great port, rotting brickwork, silent chimneys, all redundant like Scott Street Bridge. Grandpa took photos of people, a man fishing by a rusting cleat, a woman in a headscarf, a tramp sleeping against a gravestone chiseled with our surname. Wincombe Lee ends where mud sucks in trolleys, the foolhardy, the remains of our days, preserving discarded truths in a twice daily ritual. Thank you. So the next one, he says, losing his place. I did number them all, and now the numbers have all gone disnumerous on me. Right, this next one comes with a warning, and the warning is that if you idolize and worship Winston Churchill, this poem is not for you, and I suggest you mute immediately. Otherwise, you'll hear all about RAF Hutton Cranswick. RAF Hutton Cranswick. There is nothing here, which isn't strictly true. A perimeter road separates fields of wheat from peas and oilseed rape. Out of range, cars reverberate on the A164. Startled by propane cannon, birds spank. Anti-aircraft cannon long ago silenced. Nothing in this farmland betrays its past except that metalled perimeter road. From here, Polish pilots flew Spitfires, rodeos over France to defeat the Nazis. 308 Squadron, Krakow, one of many. Few returned. Some made it home, some lie under stone. War ended. You can return to your free country. Churchill betrayed them. Their homecoming was a bullet, if they were lucky, and an unmarked grave. Stalin saw to that. There is nothing here to commemorate. History is written by the victors, unsurprisingly kind to Churchill, the author who forgot their sacrifice.
Yes.
So, Brenda's going to read at least one poem from East Park, but it's been left to me to mispronounce words dreadfully all the way through this poem and see if I actually get to the end without, needing a Kleenex or something. So I don't know why this poem particularly gets to us. Wobbly. The love which once was there doesn't apply today. A sleepless night, one of many. So reluctantly, with stinging eyes, we don scarves, coats, hats, and push the daughter whose love has squeezed between us to the park. She doesn't sleep. She points at dogs, pretends to bark. Then, by the big enclosure, says, "Look, a wobbly." A wallaby. She giggles with delight, watching the marsupial's white fur, the way it hops or waits without a care. For once, our daughter's silent. I look again. She's fast asleep. Quietly, we turn round and push for home and dream of sleep ourselves, or, not content with one, to contemplate the pleasure of another. A brother? So, yeah, this next poem, anyone who knows me will know I am an incredibly sad seeker of Anglo-Saxon churches. And you may think I'd have a very difficult job. However, we are blessed in the East Riding and North Lincolnshire and York and surrounds by some of the most perfectly preserved and intact Saxon churches from the 9th and 10th and 11th centuries there are in the whole country. And one of those is at Warhamley Street, which is the street, of course, obviously means it was a Roman road, and it was a Roman road between Brough and Malton. And tucked in a fold of a valley is the little church. So this is Dore, Warhamley Street. The year Edward the Confessor's head first appeared on coins, stones were quarried, carried, dressed or carved, set one upon another to make this doorway. Behind this tall, narrow door, the mystery of ceremonies held in half light for half believers, be they Saxon or Viking, living a fragile peace. A sandstone doorway which welcomed all until the squire wanted a porch. The original walled up. Behold, the new entrance with its aspirations. We are still dividers, half believers in equality, living a fragile peace, all doors now barred. The year Elizabeth II's head last appeared on a coin. So after that, I want to really take it. I mean, Alan, on part of the back cover, mentions about passionate about the environment, etc., etc. And I'm not going to take you down the global warming avenue here. The thing that most irritates me, and I am exceptionally passionate about, is the lack of access to the countryside. I'm sure you'll appreciate that in Scotland, you have 100% of the countryside. It's all right to roam. But in England, you have a very lucky 8% if the land owner is prepared to maintain the paths, or your local authority is prepared to fight the case of an individual against a conglomerate. And I've tried to put that together during a train journey. And the train journey is from Hull to Doncaster. And right in the middle of this particular journey is Wrestle Castle. Church towers, occasional trees erupt from flatlands. A red brick village hurries by, straight rows, hedgerows, canals, not enough trees to keep us green. Straight edges of concrete as stations rush by in a blare. White-stoned Wrestle Castle stands by the river, reflecting past glories. Once the Percys ruled the north, now it's the Tories. Land which rolls out flat, reclaimed from lake, shared amongst the rich. Trespass is a crime and forgiven by landowners who possess the land and all its life. They tax food, water, air without a care. I remember this was a country which taught equality, but no longer believes in it. When royalty ruled from castles, people slaved. Now the parasites are rich, preserving medieval England amongst their ruins. So that brings me to the end of my first little set, and then you can welcome Susie and Brenda to read a couple. You can actually go to Wrestle Castle if you have permission from the landowner, and I recommend you do. It's been much improved by English Heritage over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's a beautiful castle. Or however, what you're looking at is a quarter of what was originally there. It was a huge palace, and interestingly, it contained the first water closet ever in England in 1390. Okay, so you could go to the toilet if you wanted to, so long as you were very, very rich. Otherwise, it was one of them owls. One of them owls that keep showing you when you go to a castle. My final poem of the night is Receiver of Wreck. And 2 things about this. A, it involves a shipwreck, of which there are lots, of course, on the East Coast. And B, it's an absolutely fantastic walk from, where do we usually start? We usually start at the caravan park, don't we? At Speeton, the caravan park at Speeton, and then walk out as far as Bempton Cliffs. And on a low tide, if you walk back towards Filey, you will come across the wreck of the Laura. Here's the poem. Receiver of Wreck. Lowest tide reveals the boiler, back broken, a reef of rust for barnacles, substrate for a new ecosystem, high pressure steam long forgotten. Looking through the eyelet, the ghost of a propeller drives this schooner back to a November fog and funnel belching smoke. Take a sounding. 25 fathoms. After sand parted, accommodating the hull, and Laura turned from vessel to vassal beneath cliffs of speat and clay. Tug line snagged, snapped. Receiver of wreck informed. The cargo of coke was salvaged, the vessel salvaged. Boilers remain, rendered by tides into a parody of pipes exposed to the sea. Thank you very much. And I'll pass you back to Alan and the other 2 readers. And hopefully you might listen to 1 or 2 more towards the end.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Clint. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to those. It is always different when you've been reading these incessantly in preparation of the book to actually hear them read aloud by somebody else, because you get very familiar with them on the page. I think the plan is to have a short break now.
Yes.
To allow us to talk amongst ourselves, introduce ourselves, because there are a number of people here who I've not seen before. I put up on the chat a link to Quiet Flows the Hull on our website, and of course the code for free shipping and £1 off the price. But while you're wandering there, don't forget we have 2 other books of Clint's that you might want to take an interest in. There's Tyrant's Rex, if you will have a bent towards science fiction, where Clint has actually imagined where things are going to go into the future around this part of the world. And also The Geology of Desire, which is a wonderful novel of layering, geological layering of time and emotions and relationships set along that coast running between getting tongue twisted, Whitby and Hull. If we'll give ourselves 10 minutes, go and purchase yourself a cup of coffee from your kettle or an imbibement from your home bar, and we will settle back in about 10 minutes, which is about 10 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Yes, and I'll hit stop right now.
Yes.
Oh, look. I'm just
Hello,
not
Susie. Welcome from Exeter.
Hello. Many thanks, Clint, for inviting me, and congratulations on your book. Your readings were wonderful, as always. I brought 2 poems with me, kind of along the lines of themes around the planet and the environment and equality, and I thought that might gel with some of the themes that you work with. And the first one is called Sky Dance. Humans dance dressed all in black against autumn forest leaves. Arms cross and roll, point and slide in unison with counted time. A soulful beat like murmuring flocks, waving hands, feathered fingers. A dancing chorus rehearsed to say, will you listen to the birds? Will you watch their flight, or will you stand aside and let them vanish into that extinction night? A random display of cotton wool clouds streak blue skies with a hazy pink glow. The gradual build of chattering and whistling, the promise of magic, starlings. Black dots drawn from afar to join the ever-growing swirling mass, colossal, monochrome kaleidoscope, the roaring sky dance, ebb and flow. Breathtaking sculptures in the sky closing in to form a giant black sun before peeling back into draping ribbons. A giant flock sends a breeze over plains of white feather reeds. And swift populations have been reduced by half since the 90s, so Hannah walks 2 miles to Downing Street, not wearing any clothes, painted neck to toe in feathers and birds on her back, arm aloft in solidarity, her message plain to hear. Take care the mighty swift that nests in tiny hollows, until from our shores it takes to the wing, there and back to southern Africa, an astonishing plight, crossing the Sahara Desert twice, not landing till they're home, but where filling in their humble holes. And now they can't get into nests, so Hannah stands before Big Ben to petition the people, amend our ways so the swift can stay, hands crossed in feathered prayer. Hopes drift to giant murmurations, and a random display of cotton wool clouds streak blue skies with a hazy pink glow. The gradual build of chattering and whistling, the promise of magic, starlings. And the next one is, it was inspired by the winter solstice, and it's got a splattering of fantasy in it, and it's called Byway Robbery. I go by many names: Dryad, Nymph, Spirit of the Hazel Tree, watching midwinter's eve as seasons changing weaves. When the air grows thin, I gaze along my slender boughs, catch a fleeting glimpse before the veil shifts, moves, transforms, and a new layer comes to greet the dawn. Long years at one with my beloved hazel tree, its many rings, my age-old heart, skin marked by rough woody bark. Sheltered by far-reaching boughs, I wait for change in plain sight. Glimpse autumn's winter haze, for hues of bluebells spring from night, a lighter shade of springtime. Wild garlic aromatic drifts around my hazel tree. My hands feel the itch, arms prise loose and nymph bewitched, by bluebells fade to summer's nod. I smile to see the veil at play, revealing seasons change in a streak of sunlight gone astray, playful on this winter's day. We stand alone now, me and my homely hazel tree, once wooded land, now fields expand, this hillside top that overlooks the sprawling, smoky, fuming town, and still they build the people's crown that saw my kind cut down. It broke our heart, dear hazel tree, a massacre before my eyes, swathes of trees cut down to die. Nature's ground laid to waste, a devastating sight to see, brick and stone to house mankind, while crowds of nymphs, now refugees from dear departed homeland trees. I go by many names, dryad, nymph, spirit of the hazel tree, and gatekeeper I muse, for it was me who roused, called forth the veil, and delving fingertips to heave and splice and sew and forge a new, uncanny parting in the weave, gateway to a safe new realm for dryad refugees. Gatekeepers, you and I, my wondrous sturdy hazel tree, rooted on this bridal way where season veils shift and sway, a rendered tear not plain to see. For humankind walk truly blind, but from furry feathered birds and beasts it cannot hide from prying eyes this perfect realm of summertime. Alas, this winter solstice, my guarding sentry hazel tree, map maker in our midst, trampling through the winter frost, eyes keen for veil unseen, pen in hand he understands where lines should cross but falter. He looks towards my distant land and reaches out his clumsy hand. Look away, dear sweet hazel tree, as I cast my gaze on wandering man, pen and paper in his hand. Thoughts call forth the misty weave, twisting, coiling, look, you'll see. A butterfly, a long-tailed tit, and soon you'll feel the urge to spit. Once, twice, thrice you do not know yourself, here where the air is thin, and soon you'll be a wraith, a scythe. Do you feel that sudden earthly tremor as summer's haze through peeled back layers, and from the shade walks out a cat, inky shadow as the night, sinuous, slinky, coiling black, twisting, weaving, counterlook. A year gone by, my dear beloved hazel tree, and look upon the bindweeds, trailing vines bound around, map maker's bones gone to ground. I go by many names, you see, dryad, nymph, spirit of the hazel tree, bone collecting, byway slayer, protector of nymph refugees.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susie. That was really lovely. I'll just take this opportunity to remind people, well, not remind, just tell people that on March the 26th, somewhere in Beverley, as yet unknown, we're
The King's
hosting-
Head. The King's Head.
Well, it says here unknown. But there we go.
Well, I didn't know when I wrote that down.
It is morphed into the King's Head. In the King's Head, between 4 and 7 p.m., we're having an event based around our fantasy collection of authors, of which Clint is one and Susie is another. Hopefully, people who are interested would like to come along and have an opportunity to look at some of the other material that we have, which would include Tyrant's Rex, of course, and I'm sure there'll be a geology of design skunking around in there as well. I have noticed, though, that Clint has feminized, and Brenda is going to read to us for a few minutes. Welcome. Nice to see you. And you're muted.
I think you're okay now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I was ever so pleased that Clint said, would you like to do a couple of my poems this evening? And even more pleased when I was allowed to choose them. So,
oh dear.
Well done.
We all make mistakes.
Anyway, 6 years ago, when Hull was City of Culture, Spencer Tunek was commissioned to do a series of photographs in and around Hull. And So Clint, along with thousands of others, decided to bear all for art and take part in the Sea of Hull. This is his poem about his experience. Beyond the checkpoint, I queued to register, received an empty plastic bag labelled B3, queued for body paint, marvelling at the numbers and diversity of people, all talking. Just after 4, with red dawn, Spencer ordered us to strip and paint our bodies, giving our skin a new colour. Helping hands daubed backs, and I became turquoise. Nudity made us equal. As we walked, colours mixed, leaving footprints in shades of blue until 3,000 people filled the Rose Bowl. My backside made it onto Sky News. The unyielding tarmac of Alfred Gelder Street was bitterly cold, so when the breeze blew, an ooh emanated from the crowd. Spencer called his assistant. Steve, mimicked through the ranks. A Mexican wave helped prevent the shivering. A joke about a red light broke the ice before we were marshalled into colours for the next take. We surrounded an eminent Victorian statue, our nakedness a stark contrast to his baronial robes. Our final photo found us crammed on Scale Lane Bridge. That's a cut. A round of applause. Cheers! 4 of the coldest July hours, but we'd made it. A sea of Hull reaching out the hand of friendship in shades of blue.
I love that poem.
Now, the next one, and thankfully the final one, is this was set in East Park, and it was set in the 60s when Clint was just a boy. Gran's cloche hat. Gran would not be seen without a hat. Church, shopping, a doctor's appointment, walking her poodle in East Park. To go without a hat would be beyond the pale, as she was fond of saying. Her favourite, a simple cloche, black felt, ennobled with 3 feathers, peacock eyes, crescents of blue, unfathomable black. Gran extolled peacocks as the symbol of royalty. She had aspirations, hats highlighted status. I held the poodle's lead. Gran walked beside. Good morning for owners of pedigree dogs. Never a word for mongrels. Peacocks in the park fanned their tails, screamed their calls, rattled in courtship. We watched for ages. So many photos we possess of 1960s peacocks, their beauty frozen in display. 100 eyes that mock the dead trio on Gran's black hat.
I was going to say, very 1920s as well as 1960s. That the
Oh yeah, that style of hat, definitely. Yeah. So you're still here.
Yes.
Oh yeah, thank you, Brenda. Yeah, you're still here. Now I take that to mean you obviously haven't had any geological poems, and what you really need now
Yes.
is a geological poem. I'm going to give you one. Field trip. A class of students climbing over slag heaps, waterproof trousers, cagoules, rain dripping off noses, fogging glasses. For God's sake, no one ask any questions, or we'll be here forever. It already feels like forever. Tungsten, lead, copper, arsenic ores, but only gang litters the surface now. We rip through it to reveal more dirt. Mineral veins formed when hot magma cooled, differentiated, permeated layers looking up the fell. Following veins hacked out by mining, an arterial excision, extracting ores. Damp, permeates everything. Chill sets in as we descend ancient gabbros darker than our moods. Industry needs tungsten, lead, copper, arsenic. That's why we undergraduates were here, to learn how to rob a planet of its riches, spoil a mountain of its beauty. Thankfully, I never had a chance. No poet ever looted a planet, or indeed saved one.
Oh,
And the reason that I didn't, that actually is the back of Carrick Fell. And it did originally have the title Carrick Fell. But unfortunately, there's another fell, as you guess, in the Lake District. There are lots of them. And this one's called Gow Barrow Fell, which is a beautiful circular walk, albeit I think 6 miles turned into 10 or 11. Not because we got lost, simply because we kept stopping, diverting, going to viewpoints. It's just such a beautiful view of Ullswater, from almost the middle of Ullswater right through to the north at the place whose name I've forgotten. What's it called?
Sorry,
The place whose name I've forgotten, where you hire canoes and things.
whereabouts?
Go Barrow Fell.
Oh, but Ullswater.
Yeah, Ullswater, but it's got a name.
Oh, sorry.
Glenridding. Glenridding, that's it. Oh, no. Pass me the whiskey over. Anyway, Go Barrow Fell. Molecules of water tumble over high force, under the bridge, corkscrewing through aeroforce, where harder rock resists erosion, creating a waterfall. One day, some of these billions of molecules will make it back to Go Barrow Fell, falling as rain, slaking parched peat, collecting in idle bogs where cotton grass nods. Flowers of every hue, blue orchid, pink herb Robert, purple thyme, abundant yellows punctuate our hike down from the peak, following the contours, revealing ever unfolding panoramas of lake and hills. Photos contain some things the eye cannot retain. Light playing on Place Fell, mottling its rolling greens, brightening the ancient igneous rocks spewed from volcanoes, harder than the ancient bedrock. Flows of andesitic lava aren't credited with much. An eruption 480 million years ago is now the heart of this fell, not beating, just here, as background in this selfie, celebrating the peak.
oh.
So I recommend that walk if you're fit enough, and even if you aren't, you can do some parts of it quite easily, particularly if you have a car at either end. So I think I'm going to leave you with, well, it's no secret that I was born in Hull and raised in Scarborough, and just north of Scarborough is a little village called Cloughton, where my parents retired. Well, they didn't retire. Actually, they ended up retiring there, but they were there for a lot longer than that. If you walk around the coast path, you come to Hundale Point. And Hundale Point is another one of those field trips. Not too much geology in this one, and I'll leave you with this. Hundale Point. Standing at Hundale Point on the wave-cut platform, teams of keen geologists measured paleocurrents, orientation of fossils, worm casts preserved in Jurassic sediments, a final field trip before graduation. 40 years later, I'm here again, the wave-cut platform empty, fossils still visible, preserving that moment when sea levels rose and sediments smothered. Faces staring from this graduation photograph. 1981's professors always seemed old, but friends who never made it to 60? draw a line through the faces of those no longer here. Return the photo to its drawer and let it wait.
Cool, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Clint.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed those. It was particularly interesting to note the you referenced the high force over in on the west coast. Of course, there's a high force here on the east coast, which is well off a bit to the left of Newcastle, which we go to quite often because it's a wonderful waterfall and very, very dark.
Only when you sneak in at night.
Yes, when you try to sneak in at night, you have to be awfully careful because there's lots of cliffs and things you can fall over. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to those, Clint, and I'm sure that everybody would enjoy reading them when they have the opportunity. I'd like to thank Oz and Amina for opening the show, and then Susie and Brenda for following after the break. I think we've had a really good evening. It's a shame that we can't all meet together and drink and imbibe and generally carouse in support of Clint, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to do that.
We will soon.
Oh, yeah.
In the future.
March, hopefully.
Yeah,
March.
definitely.
Yeah.
For those who are interested, the spoken word is going to take place on Tuesday as usual. And if there's anybody here who's not familiar with the spoken word, you can pop in and have a listen on Zoom if you let Rose know that you're interested.
Yeah, I can just put the link up actually.
Yeah, and I should probably put the link for the Quiet Close the Hull again.
Yeah.
And don't forget the discount code.
Well, I can't find the link right now. It's on another page, but if you email me, all the Zoom slots are gone, but Clint will be reading and Pauline Kirk, who's here, will be reading. And there's a lot of in-person slots, and Susie will be reading. There's a lot of in-person slots, and it's hybrid. So people who come into the pub can see people Zooming from home on a rather large screen, and people who are Zooming can hear people who are in the room. So we have Zoomers and we have roomers, and it's been working. When we went into lockdown, I stumbled across so many amazing, in fact, Julie Venner was here. I stumbled across so many amazing poets. And then when we went back to in-person events, I couldn't give up my addiction to Julian Matthews in Malaysia. I don't really think he's ever going to get to York. And you know, if I was going to keep it open for Julian, I was going to keep it open for everyone else. And that's really what it was. And it's been lovely. So yes, if you email me, I'm trying to put it into the thing here, Stairwell Books. Yeah, email me and say you want to listen. And then there'll be a few slots in March. And so I keep about 12, and it always goes to 14. I keep about 12 to 14 Zoom slots. And then there's room for people who show up. And it's the first Tuesday of every month. And so we'll be on February 7th and again on March 7th. Then after that, it's April 3rd, I think.
And hi, Bob. You've been very, very quiet there. I understand that when we do have the in-person event,
Yes,
you will be reading.
oh, absolutely.
We look forward to that.
Yes. Yeah, we actually have 2 blurbs for the book, Bob's and Oz's. And the book that will be coming out right now does not have its blurb free, I'm afraid, because we had to finally get it ready to be out in the world. And so by the time we got all the reviews, it had come in. So there'll be a second edition. So we'll have those then. Excellent.
All right. Can I thank everyone for being here and supporting me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Clint. We really have enjoyed seeing you and reading.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I didn't turn sideways, so I vanished. So you're all right.
Yeah. It's been a great evening.
All right. Thank you, Amina and Oz and Susie and Brenda. And oh, right. So look after yourselves, and you know, do keep in touch. If you've got any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer them. So just email Alan if you don't know my email address, or email me if you do. And yeah, so yeah, thank you very much.
Tell me, Brenda, who dusts all his fossils?
Sorry, it's Clint.
Yeah, it is me. Yeah.
I do everything else. Clint does his fossils and his dragons.
All right, with that, I'm going to stop the recording and we can continue to chat for a few more minutes, but thank you everyone for coming tonight. We really appreciate that you were here, and we'll all see you again soon. This will be on the YouTube Sterile Books channel in about a week or 2 or 3 or 4 soon. It'll be soon.
Right. Thank you very much.
Bye. I'm recording.
Thank you.
I'm stopping it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.